What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Kipp Adams and Ben Wolk with me on this Tuesday afternoon, and it is preview season, Georgia Fall Camp preview season. We're going to talk about the start of fall camp for Georgia on Thursday. We're going to just go over some storylines, what you need to know as the Bulldogs begin preparing for the 2025 season. We'll also throw out some breakout players, some guys each of us really want to pay attention to over these next few weeks as Georgia gets ready for that August 30th season opener against Marshall. We'll also talk a little recruiting, a local defensive lineman getting ready to make his decision on Saturday, and Georgia very much in the running there. So make sure and stay glued and stay tuned to this episode. Subscribe to the Dogs 24/7 YouTube. Go subscribe to Dogs 24/7. We have got our 30% off sale continuing right now. And with fall camp coming up, I believe we'll have some more deals as well. So let's get ready for another action-packed episode. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Kipp Adams and Ben Wolk with me on this Tuesday afternoon, and it is fall camp preview time. We are just a few days away from the Georgia Bulldogs returning to the practice field. They will have their first practice of fall camp on Thursday. Going to deep dive that, talk about the storylines, talk about what we're watching for on that front. Also get into some breakout players, some Bulldogs that each of us are excited to watch and going to be paying extra close attention to over this next month. We're also going to talk a little bit of recruiting, a big local defensive lineman getting ready to make his decision on Saturday and very well could be staying home to play for Georgia. But guys, let's get right into it. Fall camp starting on Thursday. And Ben, I'm just going to throw it to you. Can you believe it? As we are recording this, we're 2 days away from being back out there at Buttsmere, watching Georgia practice as they get ready for the 2025 season.
I've gotten some nice appetizers over the last couple of weeks with some padded camps or some random high school practices that I've been to, but it really is that first day of fall camp. I know we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, or about a week and a half ago now, probably, like trying to figure out when is report day, when is fall camp actually starting. I think we're all just kind of itching for it, because the day that Georgia suits up and we're meeting with Kirby Smart for the first time for a new football season, it really does just feel like an entire new page of the calendar has been flipped. And we're, 2 days away now at this point?
Yeah, we are going to be there Thursday, July 31st. I do want to go ahead and plug, stay glued on Thursday afternoon. If you are watching this, we will do a live breakdown of what we learned. We'll get to talk to Kirby Smart and players. That will be the most informative thing we get. We'll watch probably 15 or 20 minutes of practice in the afternoon as they get going. So I would highly encourage you all to tune in and definitely listen after the fact if you can't watch live. I wanted to take the start of this episode, guys, and just kind of go through some of the various storylines that we will be watching when Georgia returns to the practice field. Obviously, a lot of attention is going to be paid to Gunnar Stockton. We all feel pretty comfortable he is going to be QB1. He made it to media days. He's been raved about as a team leader, what he's meant to this team. So we will watch Gunnar, see how he plays, see how he settles in with a lot of playmakers around him, both several guys that he played with during the 2024 season, and especially at the end, but also some big-time transfers, both at running back and wide receiver. And let's start there with the Gunnar piece of it, Kipp. What do you want to learn from Gunnar Stockton during fall camp? Is there anything in particular that you want to see that may make you feel better about where Gunnar is going into this season?
Well, knowing that they're not going to be hitting him, we're not going to really learn, I guess, how much they're actually going to let him run. I mean, that's kind of the thing about this offense with Gunnar. He's always kind of had that ability that he brings to the table as not so much a dual threat, but a guy that's not afraid. I mean, we saw in the SC championship game, he's not afraid to lower the shoulder and not just take hits, but deliver hits. How much of the offense are they going to be comfortable with allowing him to do that design run plays, just knowing that there are a lot of unknowns on this quarterback depth chart. I mean, we spent the whole offseason saying we're pretty sure Gunnar Stockton's the starter, even though Kirby's never going to tell us. So that aspect is something that we'll probably won't know until, maybe, you guys are in Knoxville seeing them play Tennessee. It might be when we first find out. But just how is this offense going to look like when he's running it? How much are they going to show in camp? There's some new weapons out there. And so you really want to hear early on that not only does he have chemistry, but that, that those guys are rolling. It's always whatever you hear in spring, whatever you hear in camp, the fan reaction is going to be, well, oh gosh, that other side of the ball is struggling. But I think with a new quarterback, at the helm, you want to hear that he's got some chemistry with his guys and that he is comfortable, pushing the ball down the field. I think that's just the one aspect in fall camp. I think Georgia fans overall, regardless of what that might say about the secondary, the defense, the pass rush, you want Gunnar to feel comfortable with his weapons heading into the season.
I wanted to piggyback on what Kipp said about chemistry, and Ben kind of changed my question to you. When you look at the guys that he's going to be working with, what we're going to hear about, the rapport with the players and how he's been able to make the most of fall camp. Is there a particular target, a receiver, a tight end that you're interested in seeing when it comes to Gunnar and, hearing, if we were to hear, oh yeah, Gunnar and this guy have really been working well together. Is there a particular receiver or tight end that stands out to you there?
I mean, there's the usual suspects that I think everyone would default to: Zachariah Branch. Like any of the transfers that came in, Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas. Like I know we've talked about him a lot on this show. I think that there is a general agreement about this, but I think that Colby Young's probably not being appreciated enough. I mean, I was talking about this, like he was getting work late last year when he was back practicing with the team. Like I'm sure that Gunnar Stockton's familiarity with Colby Young exceeds his familiarity with Zachariah Branch or Noah Thomas or anybody else probably other than Dylan Bell that he's going to be targeting on a regular basis, and the tight ends too, I suppose. But, Colby Young is the one where like I kind of expect him to be someone that Gunnar Stockton is able to lean on early in the season and probably throughout it as well. I think I was having this thought when you were talking through some of these things earlier, and we were getting ready to talk about what we're looking at in fall camp and certain position groups and people that we're interested in. What I find interesting is last year, one of Georgia's Achilles heels was drop rate at wide receiver. There were concerns about the consistency that Georgia would have at wide receiver. And I don't know about you all, but when I think about what I'm curious about with this Georgia football team this year, like receiver is just not a position that I am thinking about first. Like I'm thinking about, the secondary. I'm thinking about the offensive line. Like I'm thinking about the running game. Like I'm not thinking about, are the receivers going to be reliable as much? I think that's a testament to who it is that they brought in. It's a testament to James Coley, obviously, and his ability to flip that room in the short order that he did. But I guess maybe it's a little naive on my part because we haven't seen many of these guys do a whole lot in Georgia football jerseys. And so, maybe I should be a little bit more skeptical of that room than I have been.
I will say to your point, I've tried to think back to this time last summer, and if I really felt like I had big questions about that receiver room, and I really don't think so, but I think the obvious caveat is we thought that Colby Young would be playing for the entire season. How different do things look if they have Colby Young? I think that's a fair thing to point out when you look to last year. But Ben, I'm with you with the receivers. I think that they have added enough where for me, it's almost like a shotgun method. If you just shoot a shotgun and spread out, you're going to hit a few of these guys. Some of these guys are going to hit. Kipp, I don't know if you feel the same way. I really trust what they've done at wide receiver. Now we'll have to see if they can put it into action, but I think they're in good shape as far as having guys they can rely on whenever Gunnar Stockton's back there to pass.
Absolutely. And I think, having Zachariah Branch, a guy that can kind of line up anywhere and make guys miss in space, opens up a lot. But I think Noah Thomas, that allows Colby Young to play anywhere as well. I think Noah Thomas is a guy that just is so versatile. The way Texas A&M used him, you could see that he can really do anything in your offense. But I really think maybe what we're not talking about enough is the class of freshman wide receivers seems more prepared to help Georgia's offense this season. And I mean, from what I'm hearing, like that guy might not even be one of the guys that came in January. I think Thomas Blackshear is a guy that is not being talked about enough, but his skill set just screams, plug and play. And I just think that they're going to find out in camp what each of these guys can do, who's going to, be able to go the longest without hitting that freshman wall. Like, when they start drinking from the water hose, who's able to hold their own the best when you just start throwing the playbook at them. And I do think, like I said, a lot of guys that they brought in, CJ Wiley, Landon Rowland, Talon Taylor, some really talented guys. But I think that Thomas Blackshear is a guy that is probably going to sneak in there and get some big time reps, especially knowing, they want to get the offense rolling in those first couple of games. And they also want to be able to get these other guys reps in those non-conference games, just knowing you're not going to get that opportunity later in the season. So I think that the way the schedule lines up, you want these incoming players to really get as much of the offense, defense down as you can, because those first two games are basically like, we got to get you guys in and get these reps now. You're not going to get that chance maybe if everyone's healthy for, you're playing in Auburn or Florida. So I just think it makes for a different dynamic in camp. But I think top to bottom, this wide receiver group is maybe the one position group I'm not really worried about as far as Georgia's concerned. I think they have the guys they need. And I just think that's just saying a lot of what James Coley was able to do in offseason, where that was the biggest problem, the most talked about narrative in Georgia, drop passes, leading the country. And now we're talking about the wide receiver room. And I think it's the not just the deepest, but the biggest strength of this Georgia team going into this season.
I really don't envy James Coley or whoever on this coaching staff when Kipp talks about, trying to get these guys snaps early in the season, just because there's not enough to go around. But I think that that's a good problem to have when you consider the talent and what they're working with. Guys, let's talk about some of the competitions we will be watching. There will be competition across the board. Kirby Smart will go up there on Thursday and say no one's got a job that's guaranteed and that everyone's got to fight for it. But there's a few battles we're really going to be watching. And just kind of starting with offense and going to defense. Running back, I think Nate Frazier's in a good spot. The biggest question is going to be who's the next back up. I would have to imagine Josh McCray is the leader there, the Illinois transfer. But you got Roderick Robinson, you've got Cash Jones, you've got Chauncey Bowens and Bo Walker, a lot of guys fighting for snaps. Offensive line, I think the big position for me is going to be right guard. You had Daniel Calhoun put himself in a good spot during spring practice. He hurts his foot. Does he have a good hold on that job? Michael Looney, talk about Juan Gaston. Could maybe he make some noise and try to get onto the field as a true freshman at that guard spot? Elsewhere, probably nose tackle on that defensive line, seeing Jordan Hall, but some of the other guys, Nasir Johnson, Nnamdi Ogboko, really fighting for playing time. Outside linebacker, which was very clearly Georgia's biggest need after spring. They go get Ella Madozie. He's going to have to fight off Quintavious Johnson, some of the freshmen that they brought in. Good competition there. And last but certainly not least, probably the battle for fall camp is the safety spot, the strong safety spot opposite of where KJ Bolden's going to be. You got Ja'Cory Thomas, you got Adrian Maddox, you got Zion Branch. I think that is going to be a fight that, honestly, if I had to predict, I think it goes into the season. But Ja'Cory Thomas, I think, has put himself in a good spot and is going to try to lock that down before that Marshall game. When you look at these competitions, I'll start with you, Ben. Any of them that you're particularly interested in, ones that you really, really want to watch once we are out at practice?
Well, the safety rotation is, of course, going to be interesting to me. I'm also not even just that safety spot that Ja'Cory Thomas, I feel like probably has the lead going into fall camp on. Though I know that's not how Georgia thinks of this in any regard, but how we think of it at least. And then even at star, I mean, it sounds like Janelle Aguero is the guy, but like, is there anyone else around that can contend for that? To your point that you made earlier, like everything's an open competition. Everything is going to have some of these battles going on throughout the fall. Like, I don't even quite know yet who all might be in contention to push Janelle Aguero for that starting spot at star as well. That's something that I'm very intrigued by. When you go over to the offensive side of the ball, for me, it really is, how much is Juan Gaston lurking across really 4 of the 5 offensive line spots? Like, I think it's kind of a good spot for Georgia to be in. You mentioned Michael Uni, definitely someone that is hanging around in that interior offensive line battle as well. But I think that Juan Gaston, sorry, I had a brain malfunction there for a second. I forgot who I said Michael Uni, and then I forgot who I was trying to revert back to. Juan Gaston, I think he could play any of the 4 non-center spots on the offensive line, especially early in his career on the interior offensive line. And I think that's a good problem for Georgia to have, because I think you're going to have Monroe Freeling and Micah Morris and Daniel Calhoun and Ernest Green all feeling like their job could be up for grabs if they're not having a great fall camp. And so I think that having someone like Juan Gaston right there is a great problem to have. Whether he cracks it game 1, I don't necessarily expect, but I think that he's going to be pushing all 4 of them.
One name I want to throw out, just as sort of like a sleeper. This is not a prediction, at the star position. Keep an eye on Kyron Jones. I think that he's still a younger guy, but I think that he flashed. If I remember right, I think he had a pretty strong G-Day. When you look at that competition, that would be a guy I would watch, Kyron Jones. Kipp, with these battles, any position in particular got your attention, one you really want to watch closely?
Well, Ben mentioned Juan Gaston, and I think specifically with, the recent news with John Jackson, if we're looking at him potentially missing time, like I said, those first 2 games it's just so important. They got to get everyone ready for conference play like as quickly as possible. I thought, Juan would be the one pushing Daniel Calhoun at right guard, because I do think like long term that might be where his future lies. But I mean, I think if he comes in and shows he can be trusted as the backup right tackle, they might just say, hey, you're our right side of the field guy, and you're the right guard 2 and right tackle 2. That might be too valuable for them as far as him potentially beating out Calhoun for right guard. They might just say, hey, we need you to back up both spots and do cross duty there. And he might never look back. I mean, we know that you're an injury away of being the starter. I just think that's kind of where he lies right now. And then on defense, I think we've talked a lot about Elo and his addition, how important it was to the team. I still think, we really didn't get to see it in G-Day. I think a healthy Quintavious Johnson is something that we are still waiting to see what this guy actually looks like in an important role in Georgia's defense. So seeing that in fall camp, seeing him out there will go a long way to answer some of our questions. And I don't know, we shouldn't be handing, that cornerback spot to Daniel Harris just yet, the CB2. And I'll actually say, we had the spring draft and it went a different direction, but I think Ellis Robinson is just a guy that I don't think he's going to let that competition go quietly. And I just think that thinking about the fact that he needed that year to get more physical, I mean, the coaching staff even mentioned it. He would tell you as well, coming back after a year in the strength program, him and Mello Jones, I think, are just going to make this a situation that probably goes throughout camp. I don't think that Daniel Harris should feel too secure about that spot. And I think just that physicality and the ability to tackle is going to be really important for that other cornerback spot, because if you're playing cornerback 2 at Georgia, you're going to get a lot of targets. You're going to be tested every single week. And so I think just having a guy that has the physicality, the ability to tackle and make sure that if you do give up a play, it's not they're not yards after the catch, it's not explosive, is going to be really, really crucial. So I think those are some of the battles. I love the star position battle because we talked about it. We know that there deep. They brought in a lot of transfer guys. Jonah Aguero, we know he can hit. I think looking at that schedule and the different passing attacks they're going to have, his playing time long term and how many packages he plays in, it's going to come down to his ability in coverage. Did he get quicker, this offseason? Because if not, I think you're right. I think Adrian Maddox and Kyron Jones are going to make a strong case that, hey, we can be trusted in coverage, and they might be stealing snaps from him sometime this season.
Ben, was there something you wanted to add there?
No, Kipp took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, how much do we hear Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones name this fall? Because, yes, Daniel Harris has been a feature part of Georgia's cornerback room for a couple of years now. I think that he should be looked at as the odds-on favorite to be cornerback 2 at the start of the year. But I don't think it's a guarantee that that's going to be the case. I mean, that's a guy that was battling with Julian Humphrey last year for a starting job throughout the course of the season. Could that same type of thing be happening with Ellis Robinson or DeMello Jones? And I also, this is me maybe not thinking so much about what he's done since he's been at Georgia, but I do wonder if a guy like DeMello Jones adds a little weight, his playing style, could he be someone that's involved in the star conversation as well? I don't know if that's something that's going to be happening, but I'm sure that he will get some cross-training there this fall.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to follow. And as we said, and the thing I just keep in mind this time of year, there seems to always be maybe one position when you go into the season where someone breaks out and winds up winning a job that you weren't necessarily anticipating. So that's going to be something that we're going to follow. And if you stay glued to dogs247.com, you will be up to date on everything we are hearing and what we're seeing. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do that, I want to plug our Dogs 24/7 sale going on right now, 30% off or $1 for your first month. Make sure and sign up over there. We are getting ready for a busy season, and I would also tease that there might be some more sales a little bit later on this week, so stay glued there. It's going to be a very fun football season to follow. Got some fun stuff that we are cooking up for you guys for the season. I think a lot of folks, especially if you watch this podcast or you listen to this podcast, I think we got some fun stuff that we've got lined up for the season. And we also, if you have not been on the Junkyard, we've been doing our Paramount Plus Presents here lately. We did the Fighter over the weekend. We're going to have a conference call after this podcast to figure out what's going to be next. But that's been fun talking about some different movies, because if you get your full subscription to Dogs 24/7, you also get access to Paramount Plus. So we'll take a quick break. We're going to talk about some of the newcomers that we will be watching for the first time on Thursday, and also throw out just a few different Bulldogs that we're going to be watching especially closely, and then talk a little bit of recruiting. Guys, I want to take the second half of the show and talk about some specific Bulldogs. And I want to start with the newcomers. These are the summer enrollees, guys that we have never seen in a Georgia uniform before. I wrote about this on Tuesday, so I would encourage folks to go check that story out. It's like 8 guys that have arrived this summer, and guys that we're going to be watching closely. And I want to run through these names. You've got running back Josh McCray, who is the transfer from Illinois, freshman receiver Thomas Blackshear, freshman offensive guard Dontrell Glover, UCF transfer Walclair Flynn Jr., he is a center, defensive lineman Josh Horton from Miami, London Seymour, a defensive lineman, he is a freshman, Ella Modozi, the outside linebacker from Army, and Rayshawn Dinkins is a freshman defensive back. So I'm going to start with you, Kipp. Give me one or two of these names that you are particularly interested in, guys you want to see how well the start of their Georgia career goes during fall camp.
Well, I'll stick with the one I said before. I think Thomas Blackshear's physicality is going to probably make him a lot of enemies in fall camp. I just think this is a guy that loved playing safety, coming out of high school. And if you're pushing, he's probably going to come in, 6'1", 205 pounds. That is an aspect of Georgia's offense that they've really suffered the last couple of years. They haven't had the type of physicality and outside blocking that has allowed that aspect of their run game to shine. I think he's going to be the guy that comes in and he just loves doing his job. And with that kind of physicality, never mind the fact that he's elusive and attacks the football. I just think those type of players, the high competitive, self-driven, those are guys that get outlooked often, but they get to Georgia and they just have an immediate role. I think looking at the transfers, it's easy to say that Elo Mendoza is the one that's going to be counted on to make the biggest impact. I mean, that's there. Whenever Damon Wilson left, we looked and we're like, I don't know what they're going to do at this position. And we saw them have 3 true freshmen out there in the field playing edge rusher in the G-Day game. And I mean, that was the clearest sign. Georgia's got to go find somebody. You get the best pass rusher out of the transfer portal. And now everyone's, kind of singing the guy's praises coming out of Army, but he's going to be facing a different set of offensive tackles this season than he's faced before. So how does he look against 2 guys that have NFL potential, and Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green? It's going to go a long way to Georgia feeling comfortable about where they are and how they're going to be able to create havoc this fall is how that guy performs in fall camp.
Ben, what about you? Any of these newcomers, and in particular, you want to watch guys you're going to be following closely?
Well, to your point, Jordan, like when we've never seen these guys in Georgia jerseys before, I kind of gravitate to them in general when I get out to the football, to the first fall camp. Like I'm sure Elo Mendoza is someone that I'm just going to want to lay eyes on and see how he stacks up against other guys. I had someone that I trust very dearly tell me earlier this year that they felt that the 2 biggest steals in the 2025 recruiting class were 2025 recruiting class. Yeah, 2025 recruiting class, where my brain's all over the place, were Thomas Blackshear, which I think we're seeing play out, and Kipp has done an exemplary job of explaining why he should not be thought of the way that I think a lot of people might think of a down the recruiting rankings 3-star wide receiver. And another one's Daniel Okonkwo, which that one sort of surprised me that name came up, but I just think that Georgia feels like it got 2 in-state. They trust their in-state evals. I think they knew Thomas Blackshear early. I think they learned about Daniel Okonkwo late. I think they feel really strongly about both of those guys. So just interested to see how they stack up physically. Same can be said for Rayshawn Dinkins. Talk about the star position. We don't know what it looks like this year. I'm not expecting him to be competitive necessarily in that this fall, but I think that's a guy that we're going to be talking about in a few years as a potential star of the future for Georgia. And so, just again, I'm going to probably, when we get out there, I'm going to be out there taking some photos, Jordan. We're going to need some shots of specific guys. You're going to need to tell me like, hey, don't just look at the guys that we haven't seen before, because that's what I typically do when I get out to that first practice.
I mean, the thing is, that's what everyone looking at the photo gallery over at Dogs 24/7, they won't see the new guys. That first practice. The problem is, it may wind up being our only practice that we get to watch, or maybe one of like 2 over the course of fall camp. But you guys hit on the biggest ones. I was interested to see there if you were going to say Rayshawn Dinkins, because he's a guy that, again, I don't think he's going to be in the mix right now, but I heard a ton of people when he flipped from Georgia Tech say this guy is really, really good. And Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I heard some Javon Bullard comparisons. I don't know if it was with Dinkins. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, they've got similar frame, style of play, kind of just overall demeanor and attitude. So I think that there have been a lot of those comparisons. I will also add, I guess, Josh McCray. I am fascinated to see how that unfolds this year, because to your point, it's like it feels like Nate Frazier secure running back 1, right? But it's like, well, we've also seen a Nate Frazier where ball security was an issue, and we know that Kirby Smart isn't just going to be trotting out a running back 1 that has ball security issues over and over and over again. Not saying that that's what I expect to happen, but I just think, Josh McCray's been there and done that in a big time league in a rush first offense more than anybody else that Georgia has at running back right now. And so I'm interested to see whether he is a running back 3, like I think a lot of people thought of him when Georgia brought him in the portal. It was like, oh, this is just another guy to add to that room. Or is he someone that Georgia feels like it can feature in its offense?
I want to talk a little bit about Josh McCray and then segue it into the next part of the conversation. Josh McCray is a guy I want to watch. And what I like about his game, I feel like he complements Nate Frazier really well. I think that, Nate's got a little bit more speed, got that ability to cut and make those quick moves. And then Josh McCray just looks like a bowling ball, man. Like, he was fun to watch, his Illinois highlights. And, he'll be someone I want to watch. And then this conversation I want to have of you guys telling me, more so guys that are already on this team, guys y'all want to watch. To me, a part of the conversation and the competition I want to watch is Josh McCray and how Roderick Robinson's coming along. Because to me, unless Bo Walker comes out here and has a great fall camp, which could very well happen, he had a great spring practice. I look at that second running back spot and say Josh McCray or Roderick Robinson. And Roderick's a guy that, has shown a lot of potential. He just cannot stay healthy. He has not stayed healthy in his first 2 seasons at Georgia. And I look at him as a bruiser. I think about his freshman year. Kendall Milton basically said, I told him, stop gaining weight or they'll turn you into a fullback. I mean, just because of how big he is. But he moves well with that weight and looks the part. So I want to see how Roderick Robinson handles coming back from injury. We saw on X, someone had posted some of his workout videos, him coming back, and I thought he looked really good, but we got to see it out there and see what he does because, Josh McCray did not come to Georgia to sit on the bench. I mean, the fact that he transferred, had a really good season at Illinois last year. I always like shouting out that he was the Cheez-It Bowl MVP. That's not a small award. That those are your best players in college football getting that kind of recognition. But no, I mean, I think he came to Georgia with the intent of playing quite a bit. And Roderick Robinson is going to have to show up and bring it. So Roderick's one of my guys that I am watching really closely in camp. Kipp, give me a guy that you really want to follow, a guy that you're paying a lot of attention to once fall camp gets underway.
As someone who drafted Roderick Robinson, it pains me to say this, but I'm looking at Bo Walker. I just think that there's only so many snaps to go around, and I honestly feel like just stamping it right here before camp comes out. I mean, Bo Walker's going to get his, so somebody's going to lose theirs. That's just how I feel right now heading into camp. I think that he's coming in there to make plays and to earn playing time. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him off the field. And you mentioned Josh McCray, Roderick Robinson, similar skill sets. One player has to stay healthy. One player has to, show he can be productive in this conference. I just think Bo might bring something different to the table. And I think he's going to carve out a role. So I think it's just another one of those positions where a year ago it was like, they're having, Cash Jones got a lot more playing time than I think anyone predicted. He did really well in that role, but it's kind of a situation where you don't know if his skill set can expand beyond what it is. But now we're looking at Chauncey Bowens looked to have a good offseason. He got Dwight Phillips coming to year 2, but this position room, like wide receiver, has got a lot more depth. And I think going into camp, Bo Walker's going to be someone that, the rest of that position room is probably looking over the shoulder, if not, seeing him pass them by. I just think he's ready to do that and to step into that role as a true freshman.
I mean, I think the running back room right now, what day is it? It is July 29th, is very deep. But I think that Georgia went in the portal after spring understanding how hard it is to keep that room healthy. And you look at some of the things they ran into when Trevor Etienne got hurt last year. I think that they are very cognizant of there might be 7 or 8 guys right now that we think we could trust to give the ball to in an SEC game. But what is that number in October? I guarantee you that number will be lower in November. And I think that went into why they went after Josh McCray, because at the end of spring, I was like, I just don't see them going in and getting another running back. But I think they understand that you are going to lose running backs over the course of fall camp. I'm sorry, over the course of a season. So you got to be ready. And Josh McCray is going to be part of that conversation. Ben, give me a player or two that just across this roster you're really interested in watching during fall camp.
I mean, my recruiting default, Elijah Griffin, obviously. I think I'm expecting Elijah Griffin to play a role on this team this year. I don't know at what point in the season that will become a regularity, but I do expect by the end of the season, if Georgia is playing championship football, Elijah Griffin will be in that rotation. I'm interested to see what he looks like right now. And then I'll say the two linebackers behind CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson, what does their physical progression become? Can they make a push for playing time here and there? I'm sure that the answer to that is yes, but it's tough when you've got guys like CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson that are the leaders in that room. So, I would say on the defensive side of the ball, I'd go Elijah Griffin, and then those two sophomore linebackers, Chris Cole and Justin Williams.
I think there's a lot of good options. We mentioned some of them already. Roderick Robinson was the first one for me, but a guy that two guys, I'll go with another guy on offense and then one guy on defense. Defense is a guy I believe Ben mentioned earlier, Adrian Maddox, a UAB transfer. I don't know that he got a lot of attention when it came to him transferring to Georgia, and had a pretty productive spring. But I think the fact that he's hanging around, and as Ben mentioned, maybe in the mix at safety, maybe in the mix at star. And then the other guy, Jaden Riddell at tight end. He's a guy that I think Georgia's in a really good spot when it comes to tight end. But you look at the guys ahead of him, I think Oscar Delp is going to play a huge role with Gunner now being the quarterback. Lawson Lucky, definitely the best pass catcher in that tight end room. What can Jaden Riddell do? He had an ankle injury there at G-Day, but he's expected to be back. Let's see if he gets in the mix. Let's see if he's able to make a little noise. Ben, was there anything you wanted to follow up with there?
No, I was just saying Kipp was the one that brought up Adrian Maddox. I wanted to make sure he got proper appreciation for bringing him up.
Yeah, that was all Kipp, and that was definitely worth shouting out. Anybody else? Anything else before we turn the page from this fall camp preview? Anything you guys are just excited about with this getting underway?
I want to see, the depth in this defensive line. It feels like they might be able to run out a different look for each down. I was trying to think who might start on first down. If I were to guess, I would say Christian Miller, Xavier McLeod, Jordan Hall might be their first down package. But then immediately you're going to run out Gabe Harris probably on second down. And then, as far as his role, I think he might be like the glue guy on this defense this season, and his health might just be like one of the most important factors, because I think they're going to ask him to wear just so many different hats between playing defensive end, whether it's 4-eye, however he's lined up, but then also we talked about that edge rusher position and not really knowing what you're going to have in Quintavious Johnson, Elo Mendoza, what kind of impact is he going to have. They're going to throw Gabe Harris in there a lot. I just think he's going to be the guy that has to hit the ground running in camp, knowing that, they're going to ask you to do as much as you can and then kind of probably pivot based on what you might not be able to do. So I just think that the different looks and rotations that they're going to have on that defensive line, how they interchange everyone is going to be kind of fascinating, because I do think that there's not a Jalen Carter out there yet, although every Elijah Griffin video we see makes me think, okay, this guy is really scary. But, remember that even Jalen Carter, that first year was just kind of a rotation role. But I think that knowing that the guys that are in line to play right now on the 2 deep are, just guys that are going to rotate in and out. I just think it's fascinating how they do that. I didn't even mention, Joseph Jonah-Ajonye, him being healthy as well, changes everything. It allows you to move Gabe Harris all over the place. If you can trust him to play some defensive end, on passing downs, I just think that gives you a whole nother package. So how they work with that defensive line is going to be something that really catches my eye in camp.
Yeah, you mentioned Joseph Jonah Ajonye. Really excited to see what he does because he got in the mix pretty early on last year, and then he gets hurt before the Texas game, and his season ends. And I wanted to mention too Elijah Griffin. I think it was David Pollock that was talking about this, like Elijah hitting like 20 miles an hour on the GPS. That a guy that big should not be moving that quickly, and he's going to be excited. And he's a guy. If you're at practice, you may not even be watching him specifically, but I think he's going to catch your attention, and you're going to be paying attention to what he does. Again, I want to make sure and tell folks to stay glued to Dogs 24/7, especially on Thursday. We're going to have a lot of content out of that first practice, and it should be entertaining. We should learn quite a bit. Now, we were mentioning defensive line there. Let's look to potentially a future Georgia defensive lineman, Anthony Lunnan, a local standout at Clark Central, a Georgia legacy, is getting ready to make his commitment decision on Saturday. Ben, you got the latest there. What can you tell us about Anthony Lunnan and what the folks should know?
Yeah, he'll be making his decision at 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, August 2nd. It is down to Georgia and Georgia Tech. On the Georgia side of things, he is a Georgia legacy. His dad played with Mike Bobo, and I believe overlapped with Kirby Smart as well, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 90s. He plays at Clark Central, so he's right down the road. Georgia just took Hezekiah Millender in the 2025 recruiting class at quarterback out of Clark Central. We haven't seen much of a Clark Central to Georgia pipeline going on, but I feel like that football program is improving over there. And I think that because of that, you're seeing more guys that Georgia would like to add to its roster. So I think that Trey Scott, Chidera Uzodiribe, Kirby Smart, all three of them have done a good job really since offering him in March to make him feel wanted and feel like a priority. If he were to choose Georgia, that final official visit weekend of June had Jay Lamar, Tyreek Green, and Anthony Lunnan would have gone 3 for 3 on that. We said all month long, there's going to be less numbers in that final weekend, but the hit rate's going to be really high. I think that Georgia has an understanding. There's no sense in bringing guys on that last official visit weekend that you aren't going to be able to take or that you don't think are going to have any interest in choosing you. Try and get that taken care of earlier in the month. See if you can change some minds. See if you can get guys locked down. So then by that last official visit weekend, you really, are able to lock guys in. I think that Georgia Tech has done a good job there. I'm told that Jess Simpson has made this one very difficult in terms of the relationship that he has with them. He's felt like a priority more at times from Georgia Tech than he has from Georgia. And so, could that play a factor? But I like where Georgia is right now. And I think that for Georgia, James Johnson leaving for Texas makes it easier for Georgia to say, all right, well, there's still at least one more body that needs to be added on the defensive line, if not multiple.
If Anthony Lunnan winds up committing to Georgia, that would give Georgia 31 commits in the 2026 class. Stay glued to Dogs 24/7, especially on Saturday. I think Ben will be over there at Clark Central for that commitment, and you will stay up to speed if you follow along over on the Junkyard with what's going on there. Well, let's wrap up this episode right there. I appreciate Kipp and Ben for hanging out with us. Special shout out to Kipp. They're doing some work over at his house. So he's been hot on the mute button during the course of this episode. But thanks to everyone who watched this live, everyone who is watching or listening to this after the fact. Be sure to go subscribe to Dogs 24/7. As I mentioned, 30% off sale right now, or $1 for your first month. And as I mentioned, if you want to wait, check back out right around the first day of fall camp, because there might be some more sales coming along the way. Again, if you watch this podcast live, stay glued, probably 5 p.m., I would assume, on July 31st, somewhere around 5, Ben and I will podcast live, talking about what we saw at Georgia practice, what Kirby Smart and players had to say as Georgia gets ready for the start of fall camp. Go subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to the Junkyard Dawgcast wherever you get your podcasts, and also subscribe to our TikTok. We'll get that fired back up with the season just about a month away, as hard as that is to believe. So we'll end the episode right there. For Kipp Adams and Ben Wolk, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.